Naranjana Yasharanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Mishnapad Bhanamangsa Parivrajikacharya Asatarasata Shishimad Hey Divine Grace of our Charanavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jaya Mishnapad Bhanamangsa Parivrajikacharya Asatarasata Shishimad Hey Divine Grace Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Grantaraj Śrimad Bhāgavatam Ki Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru, Sri Gauranga, and Srila Prabhupada. Reading from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, Volume 6, chapter titled The Final Lesson. So take care of the bones as long as possible, said Prabhupada. But the real life is here, always remember that. The material world means we are simply all protecting bones and flesh together, but they have no knowledge of what they are. And when Atreya Rishi visited Srila Prabhupada and asked that he visit Tehran, Prabhupada said that he was ready to go, but now you have to take a bundle of bones. These were, of course, the same themes that Srila Prabhupada had always taught, the same themes that were in his books, but the lessons were more poignant and striking when Prabhupada applied them to his own situation. More than one devotee compared Prabhupada to Bhishma Dev, who gave important instructions in his last days. As Bhishma felt no pain and delivered learned and loving discourses even from his bed of arrows, and as Bhishma determined by his own will the time of his departure from the world, so Srila Prabhupada spent his last days oblivious to his physical condition, defying death and instructing his spiritually innocent sons. For Prabhupada's sons could no longer stand by and simply hear the philosophical lessons. Prabhupada had accepted their affection when they had cried for him to stay with them. And now they wanted to express their affection in the only world they understood, a world with Srila Prabhupada, living and talking with them, laughing or reprimanding them as he liked. They wanted him to eat and drink and become physically strong again. But again, Srila Prabhupada seemed to change, and he began refusing food and drink. He had postponed his passing away to exchange lovingly with his disciples, and yet at the same time, by refusing to eat or drink, he was showing his preference for passing away. He admitted when pressed that it was an impossible course of action to live without food or drink, nor did he expect or want miracles. If he was to get better, it would be by taking nourishment, but for reasons of his own, he would not eat. He said recovery was material, and he didn't want it. He kept closely in tune with the will of Krishna, allowing the holy name to sustain him. The doctors who came were often puzzled, but those who were Vaishnavas understood and respected his prerogative. Prabhupada's servants made anxiety-filled attempts to induce Prabhupada to take regular treatment, but Prabhupada preferred to take only kirtan and Bhagavatam, while at the same time sustaining a willingness to live. He empathized with his disciples' anxiety and patiently explained the puzzling situation they were in. He wanted their care, and he allowed them to try and treat him, knowing that it was bringing them more and more into a surrender of love. But gradually it became more clear that Krishna's will was indicating Prabhupada's departure. Srila Prabhupada Bhavananda coaxed, always working on the assumption that Prabhupada could stay if he wanted. Your presence on this planet is the only thing that's keeping the onslaught of the Kali Yuga from really taking effect. We have no idea even what will happen if you leave. It is not in my hands, said Srila Prabhupada, with perfect clarity of consciousness. Krishna Balaram. Srila Prabhupada always spoke clearly, logically, and with complete devotion to Krishna. Up until the last, he dealt with practical matters, forming a Bhaktivedanta Swami charity trust for reconstructing ancient temples in Bengal and arranging final details regarding ISKCON properties and monies. Through all dealings, he stayed always alert, and he absorbed himself in Kirtan and Bhagavatam. But it became obvious to his disciples that, despite his promise, he was again moving, inevitably, toward giving the final lesson. He was teaching that love was beyond death, that a disciple's love could call the spiritual master back to the world to stay, and that a pure devotee has the ability to stay in the world beyond his allotted time. Meanwhile, however, he was progressing steadily to the final point. The devotees didn't feel angry with him or cheated that he was doing so. He had told them that he had free will given by Krishna, and they also, by their free will, had asked him to stay, and he had agreed. But they knew he was not obliged. If, despite their prayers, Lord Krishna was telling Srila Prabhupada that he should come back home, back to Godhead, what could they do but accept? If Srila Prabhupada was accepting, then they would accept also. Nothing, however, could change the fact of their surrendered love. It had now become a solid pact that could not be vanquished by any material changes. They had passed the test of eternal loving service, and that could not be taken away by death. Srila Prabhupada ki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Śrimad Bhāgavatam, 3rd Canto, 26th chapter, text 21, chapter titled, Fundamental Principles of Material Nature. Yatat svasa gunam swat yatat satpa gunam swachang yatat satva gunam swacham shantang bhagavatak padam shantang bhagavatak padam yad ahura vasudevakyam Yad ahura vasudevakyam Chittang tad mahad atmakam Chittang tad mahad atmakam. Please chant. Yatat sattva gunang swachang Shantang bhagavatak padam Yadahura vasudevakyam Chitam tadmad atmakam Yatat sattva gunang swachang Shantang bhagavatak padam Yadahura vasudevakyam Chitam tadmad atmakam. Ladies. Yatat sattva gunang swachang Shantang Bhagavatak Padam Yadahur Vasudevakyam Chitang Tadmad Atmakam Yat Tat Sat Gnat Swacham Shantang Bhagavatak Padam Yadahur Vasudevakyam Chittang Tanmad Atmakam Yat, which, Tat, that, Sattvagunam, the mode of goodness, Swacham, clear, Shantam, sober, Bhagavata, of the personality of Godhead, Padam, the status of understanding, Yat, which, Ahu, is called Vasudevakyam, by the name Vasudeva. Chittam, consciousness. Tat, that. Mahad Atmakam, manifest in the Mahat Tattva. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The mode of goodness, which is the clear, sober status of understanding the personality of Godhead, and which is generally called Vasudeva, or consciousness, becomes manifest in the Mahat Tattva. Please repeat. The mode of goodness, which is the clear, sober status of understanding the personality of Godhead, and which is generally called Vasudeva, or consciousness, becomes manifest in the Mahat Tattva. Purport. The Vasudeva manifestation, or the status of understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is called pure goodness, or Shuddha Sattva. In the Shuddha Sattva status, there is no infringement of the other qualities, namely passion and ignorance. In the Vedic literature, there is mention of the Lord's expansion as the four personalities of Godhead, Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. Here in the reappearance of the Mahat Tattva, the four expansions of Godhead occur. He who is seated within as Supersoul expands first as Vasudeva. The Vasudeva stage is free from infringement by material desires and is a status in which one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or the objective which is described in the Bhagavad Gita as Adbhuta. This is another feature of the Mahat Tattva. The Vasudeva expansion is also called Krishna consciousness, for it is free from all tinges of material passion and ignorance. This clear state of understanding helps one to know the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Vasudeva status is also explained in Bhagavad Gita as Kshetragya, which refers to the knower of the field of activities as well as the super-knower. The living being who has occupied a particular type of body knows that body, but the super-knower, Vasudeva, knows not only a particular type of body, but also the field of activities and all the different varieties of bodies. In order to be situated in clear consciousness, or Krishna consciousness, one must worship Vasudeva. Vasudeva is Krishna alone. When Krishna or Vishnu is alone without the accompaniment of his internal energy, he is called Vasudeva. When he is accompanied by his internal potency, he is called Dwarkadish. To have clear consciousness or Krishna consciousness, one has to worship Vasudeva. It is also explained in Bhagavad Gita that after many, many births, one surrenders to Vasudeva. Such a great soul is very rare. In order to get released from the false ego, one has to worship Sankarshan. Sankarshan is also worshipped through Lord Shiva. The snakes which cover the body of Lord Shiva are representations of Sankarshan. And Lord Shiva is always absorbed in meditation upon Sankarshan. One who is actually a worshipper of Lord Shiva as a devotee of Sankarshan can be released from false material ego. If one wants to get free from mental disturbances, one has to worship Aniruddha. For this purpose, worship of the moon planet is also recommended in the Vedic literatures. Similarly, to be fixed in one's intelligence, one has to worship Pradyumna, who is reached through the worship of Brahma. These matters are explained in Vedic literature. Om Jnana Tamranda Shagananjana Shlakaya Chakshura Tamyana Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam karoti vachalam pangum lankai te gurum yat kripatamaham bande shri gurum dhiratanam. Translation again. The mode of goodness, which is the clear, sober status of understanding the personality of Godhead, and which is generally called Vasudeva or consciousness, becomes manifest in the Mahat Tattva. I like the way it says, fundamental principles of material nature. This is actually the graduate study. People are looking and thinking that they know so many things. And they're reading Bhagavad Gita, and we get a basic appreciation of the philosophy. Aham Brahmasmi, Dehenosmi Nitya. We're not these bodies, we're spirit soul. But the total, this Mahat Tattva, the 24 material elements in time, this is such a complex subject matter that it's difficult. Anyone who has, doesn't matter if he has the highest degree in physics, he can be the Nobel laureate in his particular field, but he has not the slightest access to this absolute knowledge. But yet they're thinking that somehow or other they've achieved a high level of academic education or knowledge or whatever. And the fact that they even speak so casually on these subjects is a type of cheating. They have this confidence. There's a term, the term con man. Everybody familiar with the term con man? Have you ever heard con man? Con man is short for confidence. So these persons can speak with complete, comfort in their lying ability. And that ability to do so breeds false confidence in those who are innocent or ignorant. And then thus they're cheated in so many ways. You can have so many choices. They call them pyramid scams or all various types of, but mostly I've seen devotees have become prey to these so-called pyramid scams, where they invest in something that's unreasonable, and they think they're going to get such huge returns. And how do they justify it? How do they justify it? I'm going to use this for Krishna's service. Instead of taking that $20,000 that they're eventually going to lose and using that in Krishna's service, they give it to somebody, and he keeps the money, cheats them, and they don't get that money to use in Krishna's service, and they're actually complete losers at that point. And then they're crying. Oh, woe is me, all my life savings, so much money. The point is, why didn't they use it for Krishna? If they had it, then that's... So this confidence, this real confidence, comes from this Vasudeva Sarvamati Samahatma Sudulbha. That one is filled with actual knowledge, not this academic paper knowledge that you get at the end of 4 or 8 years, along with $200,000 in debt, government and various loans. And people cannot survive. They were cheated into thinking that if I do this 4 years schooling, I will graduate, get a job, and I'll be able to live whatever. It doesn't matter if it's this dream or that dream. Every country is channeling people into this slaughterhouse education. Prabhupada called it slaughterhouse education for a reason. Every person is blindly following the next person, even though they see that there are so many people who are graduating college and they have no jobs. They're in waiting tables, driving Uber. They have no future. Can't save money, can't do anything. And they're lamenting that, oh, my parents' generation, they had it so easy. They were able to save money, buy a house, buy land, buy whatever. And we can't do anything. The rent is too high. There was some guy who ran for president one time. his platform was, the rent is too damn high. That was his whole platform. Very charismatic fellow. Made it to all the evening talk shows. You can look it up, check it out. But this is, they're expecting too much. They don't know what they're looking for. Shanti Mam, this is what they're really looking for. They want peace. And they think they'll get it by accumulating money, but they have to work so hard to get it. So this is a futile endeavor. And we're here to try to interrupt their dream, their illusion, by giving them this absolute knowledge. So this is our only mission, is to wake up these sleeping souls. They're all eligible to go home back to Godhead, but they're languishing uselessly in this material world, dreaming that, somehow or other, instead of being taking the advice, and Prabhupada was giving some, that the whole, even religion, is based on this economic, give us this day our daily bread. And Prabhupada said, nobody's dying for want of bread. The elephant is getting his bread, the ant is getting his bread. Why are you going to God and asking for this? He said, God will give you, there's no doubt. He'll give you a form of life. You'll never have to worry about eating. What's that called? Anamoya. Their only consciousness is how to eat. And so Krishna will give them a body where they never have to worry about eating. You see how many living entities, even if we put our trash out at night, how many living entities get into that trash? How many worms? Even when it's before it gets out of the building, so many living entities are infested in there. And they're getting so much prasadam. Right? They never have to worry about it. Anything. So much prasadam. So it's a very fortunate opportunity that even those living entities who are not seeking the absolute truth are taking birth in Vaikuntha, in this material world, in Radha Govinda's temple. So even that is a special birth. So who can imagine how merciful the Supreme Lord is to those who have a desire to look towards Him. This haranmayena patrena, this glaring effulgence that covers the Lord's form, is completely removed by this knowledge. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita. Completely removed. Janayat yasubharagyam Gyanam cha yat ahoitakam. Without any extra endeavor. Simply by engaging in devotional service, this Sarva Shichaham Riddhi Sani Vishnu, Krishna gives us a hint in the Bhagavad Gita that I am seated within everyone's heart, and from me comes knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. So what need is there for any extra endeavor? What need is there to pursue something that will only bring momentary happiness? Right? Even a whole life of working is simply momentary happiness, because life is, what do they say in Latin? Ars longa vita brevis. Ars longa vita brevis. It means art is long, life is short. Art, like Leonardo da Vinci, like Michelangelo, art is long, life is short. So art exists even after the death of these so-called personalities. And we're here simply thinking that we can appreciate this art going back thousands of years. And that's their relative appreciation of this human civilization. Very relative. It's nothing. It's actually nothing. It's not. This civilization, taken from the viewpoint of the demigods, is like the ants. Remember when you were a kid, you had science projects, you did an ant farm? Did you do an ant farm? You can send away a mail order kit. You got this little thin plastic. You filled it up with sand, put a few ants in there, and you watch them make their tunnels, you feed them. And what do? You're playing God. You're playing Lord Brahma. You've built a little mini terrarium civilization. But that's the demigods are looking at us in the same way. They're thinking, look at these guys. With a snap of their fingers, everything is done. Indra comes, 7 days, rains out, washes everything out. If not for Krishna, there would be nothing left. But by Krishna's mercy, then we have this eternal pastime of lifting of Govardhan Hill. So these things are, but one has to have appreciation, has to have perspective. Prabhupada gave that definition in the Bhagavad Gita in the 10th chapter. He said, intelligence means to understand things in their proper perspective. So it's like now there's another threat of war and conflagration. Every few years there's threats like this. But the devotees are not, it's not that they're undisturbed, but they're not overly disturbed. We're disturbed only to the extent that it may interfere with our preaching. And to the extent that it expands our preaching, we're ecstatic. We don't mind. More people should become aware of the futility of material existence. And wars have a way of doing that for some reason, right? All of a sudden, everything is in short supply. Everybody wonders, why is this? When is this going to end? So the opportunity to take into consideration time and circumstances. And by the way, if anyone gets a chance, you listen to this Prabhupada's lecture on this verse in Bombay in 1974. There's that light telling us somebody's at the door. Because Prabhupada gives very nice, this whole, third canto, Prabhupada spent so much time on 25th and 26th chapter in Bombay, 1974. And very enlightening. So this is, and one should appreciate how Prabhupada approaches these different shlokas, and see under the circumstances by which he was speaking them, and the audience. So everything is there, and he even alludes to that, how, according to time, place, and circumstance, there may be some slight change in essence. And Prabhupada said, we don't speak the same way in India as we speak in America. Because life is different. Person's life experiences are different. So everything has some perspective. But this intelligence by which one can understand Krishna, this tadara justamo bhavo kama lobha, this means coming to this level of Shuddha Sattva, this Vasudev consciousness. This is the platform of pure consciousness. It is not, in the temple, one can easily achieve this. Outside it is not so easy, because one has to go back and forth between his material and spiritual endeavors. He gets up, he worships his deities, and then he goes to work for 8 hours. And he's totally absorbed in whatever it is that he has to do. And then he comes back, and Prabhupada would relate how when his father would come home, him and his sister would hear the bells. His father would come home and do arti, he would make an offering to the deities, he would perform arti. This is the standard of grahastha life. And one is worshiping the deity and setting an example for the children. And so that makes an impression. And Prabhupada, what's his impression? My father gave me early on the worship of Radha Krishna deities. And so everything is there if one. And so here in the temple we have our eternal spiritual father engaging us in this worship of Radha Krishna. And so how fortunate are we to have this opportunity that our consciousness, without any extra endeavor, is being purified. And the realizations that we have are not something that you can buy. You can't pay your tuition and get course credits and get a certificate for this knowledge, for this realization. It is not possible. It can only be achieved by sincere endeavor in Krishna consciousness. When Krishna is saying, Sarvadama Pritya Jama Mekam Sharanam Bhaja, what does this mean? To give you all protection. He's giving the knowledge by which you can protect yourself. Yes, Krishna, I used to tell my kids, Krishna can protect you from anything except your own stupidity. So this is our situation. Is that Krishna is protecting us. He's giving us knowledge. And you see that as soon as someone does something foolish, he immediately realizes it. He says, oh, why did I do that? What a foolish thing to do. Because Krishna is giving us, I give them the understanding by which they can come to me. And what does that mean? By recognizing where it is that we need corrective action. Right? If there was no, the spiritual master, why is he, the term guru doesn't just mean that person who is our eternal preceptor. It means heavy with knowledge. And that knowledge is meant to liberate us from the ignorant condition of life. Om Jnana Tamarandasya Gananjana Shalakaya. He is not there to pet us and comfort us and hear our sob stories. No. He's there to cut with a sharp knife of knowledge and the cancer of our ignorance. That's how Srila Prabhupada described his guru, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. So one should not, and we willingly put ourselves in this situation to accept this chastisement. Because otherwise, just like for a small child, if he does something foolish, you have to give him some corrective action. You don't let him continue to do something which will ultimately lead to harm. Right, so here, nirvishesha shunyavadi, which is the harm. The harm is that we will become bewildered by some flowery language and become distracted by the pinpoint accuracy of Vedic knowledge. And that's what it is. And you have to maintain laser-like focus. You know, a little deviation, Prabhupada said, like a razor's edge. A slight slip and there's blood. So we don't always take it so seriously. We think, no, it's, I can, whatever, make this adjustment, make that adjustment, do this, do that. No. Every adjustment you make is an opportunity for Maya. She may not exercise it at that moment, but then she knows it. Everything. When you're kids, what did they say? At least in America, says you make at Christmas. Everyone makes a wish list. All right? Everybody has in Christian. What do they? And they chastise the children to scare them. They say that they know who's naughty and who's nice. They know who's naughty and who's nice. So Maya knows everything. There's nothing you can hide. She doesn't use it to blackmail you, but she uses it to educate you. Blackmail is what they do in the material world, but it's the same concept. If you have information that compromises an individual, you keep it. You don't utilize it until you need it. And then you play it like a trump card when you're playing poker, So you just have, you have to be aware that Maya is your constant companion. And she's just looking to see what you do, that's it. That when you do in law enforcement, when you're probation, they call, well, it has different terms for it, but probationary officer or probie, you do a ride-along, and you see what's actually happening on the street. And everything you do is being monitored by the person who's giving you the orientation. And one false move can lead to, in that situation, death. And of course, spiritual death is a greater disaster than simply material death. One becomes condemned for who knows how many births. It's not simply this one life. If one falls down into this Mayavad philosophy, he ends up in a situation that nobody knows what the outcome is. When will he get relief again? When will he have the opportunity? Millions of births. Millions of births. So this is, we have to take great care. as far as achieving this mode of goodness is concerned. As far as Maya, she's actually helping us by being the opposing, just like they say, two sides of the coin, good and bad. So we have always this choice to exercise this independence, this free will. And Maya is actually helping us because she lets us see what the results, not necessarily within ourselves, but yes, if you're foolish enough and you want to experience that kicking, then certainly you will get that hard, painful lesson. Right? Just like they say, the school of hard knocks. You can learn that way. Third class intelligence, right? Seeing, hearing, and experiencing. No, hearing, seeing, and experiencing. Hearing first class, seeing second class, experiencing third class. That's issue. So, but if you see others, and you didn't hear it the first time, somehow or other, went over your head, but then you see somebody else get kicked, I say, oh, okay. I can avoid that. Let me utilize my intelligence how to avoid that kicking of Maya. And what is that kicking? What is that verse? Anyway, it ends up with chewing the chewed. How does that go? What's the first one? Come on, start me off. You'll remember it. I'll remember it too. But yes, chewing the chewed. We understand that. That this is that no one can escape except by good association, and that is there also. That in that particular verse. Yeah, what's that verse? What's the first line? Just here. Matirna Krishna Parataksvatova Mitobi Padyeti Grahavitanam Adanta Gobya Vishatam Tamisham Punak Punaschavatacharanam. And the translation.
Because of their uncontrolled senses, persons too addicted to materialistic life make progress towards hellish conditions and repeatedly chew that which has already been chewed. Their inclination towards Krishna are never aroused either by instructions of others, their own efforts, or by a combination of both.
See? Even by the instructions of others, a combination of both. So everything is contained in. Prabhupada uses sometimes. He'll say that, like the businessmen have clubs, Rotary Club, this club, that club, conferences. So this is the same. People have these huge conferences, and here every day we're having a conference on Śrimad Bhāgavatam, just to solidify our appreciation and understanding of the absolute nature of this transcendental knowledge. That we've seen, everything we've seen and everything we've read is absolute truth. And Prabhupada, in that lecture, if you listen to that lecture, he was describing how people want to go to the moon planet, heavenly planet, to think a better status of life. And so now what are they talking about? Now again they're talking about leaving the Earth planet and going to Mars. That's their new thing. They want to go to Mars. They have no idea what is on Mars. But they think, no, maybe it's better than here. But have they really tried to make this situation the kingdom of God on earth? No. Once you make God your king, then this becomes the kingdom of heaven. And that's alluded to in the Christian theology. But they can't actualize it. They don't have the capacity to extrapolate to that extent. We already see that we have the kingdom of God right here, externally and internally. Externally and internally. And so that realization grows day by day. And eventually we will achieve this Vasudeva consciousness. We can have it anytime we want, but to have it in samadhi, that will take time. That continuous consciousness that produces, people are, what are they talking about now? They have so many trans this, trans that. But the real trans is the transition between the spiritual and the material consciousness. I can identify as a spirit soul. See? I am spirit soul. That's the real transition. I'm not this body. I'm not this body that I don't think I'm another body or that I think I'm this body. No, I'm spirit soul. I'm free. And the more I can think of that, the closer I get to establishing this steady consciousness, this complete steady consciousness. But it takes time. But it can only be achieved in the association of devotees. So this is the purport. It can only be achieved in the association. And trying to do it on one's own endeavor is, what's that verse? Harava bhakta shikato mahadguna manorate nasati daivatobhati. You don't develop these good qualities of the demigods by accident. It comes by association with devotees. Everybody else who's endeavoring without full knowledge is only getting some mental satisfaction. This is not real satisfaction. Just like dreaming is not real satisfaction. People have good dreams. I remember, you'd hear people say, yeah, I want to go back to sleep because I was having a good dream. And you think, okay, that's what material life is like. People should recognize. They want to go back to sleep because they were having a good dream. They didn't want to wake up and have to, get ready to go to work. They were more comfortable in that illusion, under the ignorance of sleep. So this is the nature of the material world. Everyone is simply trying to construct this external vision of their dreaming state, and that is the definition of ignorance. The definition of ignorance, that which is not illusion. So, I'd like to take some questions, if anyone has any. There's Matanga. Come closer, my dear Matanga, so we can hear your very thoughtful questions.
You were speaking in the beginning about slaughterhouse education, and we know well from the books of Srila Prabhupada is blasting many times the modern education, which is basically...
Okay, after you say the question into mic, say it again without the mic so I can hear it.
Can you hear me?
No, everybody can hear you online, but I can't hear you. Yeah. So say the question and then say it again.
Yeah, so the question is slaughterhouse education. This seems to be a sensible topic because we see in our movement nowadays there are devotees who go for education, for material education, and there is some encouragement there. But then on the other side we see that Prabhupada was clearly against it in a way. So we know also there are devotees who are into academics and they're using it for preaching purposes. But overall, how to understand it? Is it good for everybody? Should we encourage? Is it time, place, and circumstance?
That's a good question. According to time and circumstances, it's not for everybody. There may be a few who can use it for preaching, but those are very few and far between. And who is the authority that would say that, yes, you, after having become a devotee, now you go take this academic whatever and use it for preaching? When we see that, for the most part, preaching is not dependent on it, and only in certain areas would it make a difference that I have a BA, MA, PhD after my name. I mean, Prabhupada gave everyone the opportunity to become Bhakti Shastri. So that BS, Bachelor of Spiritual Science, is much more valuable in 99.9% of circumstances. It might be 1% if you're trying to make money. If you're a grahasta and you said, I'm a Bhakti Shastri graduate, you may not get very far. But is that what we're endeavoring for? So there's that yuktam vairagya, that anasakta sivasyanyata upayunjata nirbandha krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagyam uchate. It's a very tricky understanding. What is yuktam vairagya? So usually we take it from an authority. When devotees asked Srila Prabhupada, should I go back to school to finish my degree? Prabhupada said, no. Not one single disciple, whoever asked Srila Prabhupada if he should go back to school, the Prabhupada said yes. Not one. After Prabhupada left, many people went on to do whatever. That's their prerogative. They were in a position to, as an authority, so to speak. Right? But if you were to ask, if I was to ask, like my godbrother asked Srila Prabhupada, he was in med school, he said, should I complete? He said, Prabhupada said, no. There are enough doctors. He said, there are enough. You should be a doctor of the soul. His whole family was doctors. Whole family. And Prabhupada said, no. And did it hurt him? No. Was he able to serve Prabhupada in an amazing capacity? Yes. And isn't that ultimately our goal of life, is to serve the spiritual master and serve Krishna? So if your yukta vairagya doesn't do that, then it is falgu vairagya. It's false. Not false renunciation in the sense that it's not wanted or wanted. It's false in the sense that it shouldn't have been endeavored. There should be no endeavor for it. It really is false. So we should be very careful about doing anything. The other point Prabhupada makes, if you listen to this lecture, is he talks about Prahlad Maharaj and how happiness and distress come of their own accord. So no one is seeking distress, and distress comes. And then he says, similarly, happiness and everything else that you associate with happiness, whether it's success, good wife, good life, all that comes automatically, according to your destiny. And if it's not your destiny and you endeavor for it, then you're doomed to failure. Why do people have 3, 4 marriages? Or 5 or 6 marriages, or whatever? Or, so many, wasn't there? So you have to be careful about appreciating this point of what should I do or shouldn't do with regards to my endeavors to please Krishna. Krishna is he's given you a guide in the form of the spiritual master. In the absence of the spiritual master, the guide could be senior god brothers, senior god sisters, other authorities. They're there. They're not. Someone may be thinking, "Oh, this person just wants to keep me as a temple pot washer." No, who cares about that? We're not concerned about whether or not you're temple. Everyone should wash Krishna's pots. Yeah? For as long as he likes. At a certain point, Krishna will come and say, okay, I need you to do something else. He will hear that from someone who's in a position of authority. Now I want you to go out and do Sankirtan, especially during Christmas season. Go out as Santa. That's a surrender, dressing up as Santa Claus. People go, you're not a Santa. I said, none of these guys are Santas. You think those Salvation Army guys are Santas? They're not Santas. Who's a Santa? I remember sitting in the front lobby of 55th Street. We were reading Bhagavad Gita, myself and Narantara. And we come to that verse where it says that the devotees are called Santa. And Narendra jumped up because we were going out and doing, Christmas, Santa Claus all the time. And he said, there. So, that was our authorization. The devotees are the real Santas. Bhagavad Gita. In the purport. S-A-N-T, just like that, Santa. Anyway, so this is there. So we have, and Prabhupada talks about that Santa Mrichiti in that lecture also. So if you get a chance, listen to that lecture and don't make the mistake of others who have gone off to do something that was not authorized. If it's authorized, if you're a grahasta, technically, nobody's going to stop you. You know, that's your endeavor. You've already made that decision. You have to prepare your situation. Just don't become grihamedi. You know, Prabhupada said grahasta brahmachari. That's a heavy thing. People think about that. What does that mean? If you answer that question, then you'll know what it means. You know, this is our life. Our life is not for sense gratification. Vishaya chadiya sera semajiya mukhe bolo hari hari. This is our life. Vishaya chadiya. We don't want this poison of sense gratification. You know? We take it to the extent necessary. You know, we enjoy nice prasadam. What is it that we don't enjoy? You know, 8 hours sleep. Someone can lament. Is that really worth lamenting about? That I didn't get enough sleep? Prabhupada said, you'll sleep when you're dead.
Today, in a certain ISKCON project, there are devotees who are willing to join the ashram, for example, and they've been advised to first do their degree and then come for brahmacharya, because that's kind of more practical, because, you know, time changes, mind changes, when they change ashram, in this way they're secure. What is your opinion on this? Seems kind of...
Now say it again without the mic.
In a certain ISKCON project today, people who are willing to join as brahmacharis are being advised to finish their degree first and then join as brahmachari. And work for 2 years. Because, you know, time change, mind changes, and when they enter grihastha ashram, if they decide to do that, then...
That's mostly in India. That's not in America. In India, there's a different cultural expectation to keep everything peaceful. Otherwise, the parents, they get all twisted out of shape. We've seen that. It happens. So, you know, sometimes you can't avoid this cultural situation like that. But that's not Prabhupada's system. Prabhupada's system is that, you know, we're here serving the spiritual master. You can do whatever. What if Krishna can give you the intelligence to do anything? If you have a degree and you want to use it in Krishna's service, that's fine. If you weren't in the brahmacharya ashrams from the time you were 18, that is what it is. You don't lament. Brahma bhuta prasanatmana sochatina kankshati. The other thing, I don't lament that I wasted 4 years in college, or I wasted 2 years, or I wasted 10 years. You know, whatever you have, you use in Krishna's service. So if that was the case, then obviously it was meant to happen. And then I came in contact with the devotees. It was also meant for me to suffer a certain amount, so that when I did join, I wouldn't look backwards and think, oh, I have something left, I have to, unfinished business, unfinished pleasure. All right? I didn't get married, I need to now go get married. I didn't become a Formula One race car driver, I need to go back and do that. No, we don't think, lament, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma. I wasn't a famous musician. I need to go back and become a famous musician. I didn't achieve my goal of becoming whatever. This is Maya's trap. Delusion, sometimes fed by past material experiences, past life experiences, a sense of greatness. You know, I was meant to be something. How many times have you heard that? I was meant to be something. But what they're meant to be is a dog or a cat or a camel or an ass or a cow, because they don't know. They think, I was meant to be something. It's the most foolish thing, actually. You know, this so-called sense of greatness. You know, yes, you came into this material world as Lord Brahma, and now look at you. You know, you're on the lowest level of the 400,000 species of human life. There's the demigods above you. You know, in other theologies, they call them angels, or this, that, the other thing. So many living entities are above human beings. And we're thinking somehow or other we're great. You know, this is, but because they have no experience of it, they don't reflect on the fact that we're insignificant. And whatever we do, as it said, we could, you know, one time devotees said, well, Prabhupada, what will happen to the planet? Prabhupada said, you cannot destroy the planet. You cannot destroy this planet. People are worried about this or that, pollution, climate. He says, you cannot do anything. You know, but somehow or other, it's used to generate a certain favorable mindset. First, you know, what? The bottom line is follow the money in all these endeavors. Doesn't matter if it's war, doesn't matter if it's this or that. Anything that you see is simply one person or some group of persons means to try to accumulate wealth and power like that. And that's the way it is in the material world. And once you know it, you know it. Right? Isn't that what they say on the meme? Said, if you know, you know. If you know, you know. We don't worry about these things. All we worry about is trying to give somebody a Bhagavad Gita. Because if you give them a Bhagavad Gita, then their life is successful and your life is successful. Unlimitedly successful. You can't. One person, just one person more. You never know who that one person will be. He could be a Sadaputa. He could be a Dr. Swarup Damodar. Who are these great souls that came into association with Krishna consciousness? Just because somebody gave them a book. Right? So this is how we try to appreciate how important our service is for distributing transcendental literature, chanting the holy names, and essentially carrying out Lord Chaitanya's mission on his behalf. What is greater than that? Is there any academic achievement that's greater than that, than being Lord Chaitanya's foot soldier? No. Someone may think, yeah, I want to be something else. But that's okay, they can. Krishna will let you. But don't diminish or demean those who are fully surrendered to the spiritual master's mission and think that, no, they can't do anything else. Who says? Everyone has the same potential. You know, doesn't matter how you start in Krishna consciousness. Krishna can give you anything. We see those devotees, Prabhupada elevated from hippie status, living on the Lower East Side and this and that, the other thing. And what they did to spread Krishna consciousness, that's inconceivable. The biggest swamis in India came and they couldn't do anything. You know, Paramahamsa, Vivekananda, what could they do? Make a few old ladies to establish a few, nothing. It almost looks, it's very unfortunate. You know, so we see what Krishna can do through the agency of a pure devotee, and what the pure devotee can do on behalf of Krishna through empowering others to act. So this is the miracle that we see that's going on every single day. People say, what are the miracles that your spiritual master did? You know, he raised somebody from the dead. No, he raised hundreds of thousands of people from the death of material life. Hundreds of thousands of people now have actual life, you know, self-realization. Dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayantite. Actual life. After many, many births, finally they're awake. Jeev jago, Gora Chandra bole. Kota nidra yamaya. Pisha shira. The witch. So many Pishachira. There's different terms for witches. The Pishachira is the one that flies on an uprooted tree, which is this is Halloween. This is the classic witch thing. You see her on a broom. But actually the Pishachira rides on an uprooted tree, a young sapling. And they get this from the Vedas, Pishachira. Did you know that, Connor? You didn't know that? Yeah. Visachira rides, and that's why you see in the profile, they think it's like a broom. It's not a broom, it's just those are the roots dangling behind the tree. So, we've been saved from these witches, and especially on Halloween, we get to go out and save the whole world from these witches. So, any other questions, comments, corrections? No? Sure? We can always ask. Yes, go ahead, Mataji.
Just on this point of, like in India, there's a different cultural expectation for brahmacharis to work and kind of get the discipline or take the responsibility, and how we don't have that expectation here. But especially like in today's generation, and just like Kali Yuga in general, we see that people are very lazy, and it's almost like responsibility is pushed away very much. And so how is it that brahmacharis can come and still take responsibility, learn how to be responsible? Not to say that
That's
they
the
won't work
that's the
hard,
point.
but the actual responsibility.
See, that's a good point Mataji made. It's not a question of you have to go to school for 4 years and be prepared to become a mindless bot in some cubicle or doing thousands of lines of code, which is what they end up doing in India mostly. And then there's a glut and there's no work. And so then people have to do something else, drive Uber. How many people have, college graduates, you meet them, oh, what did you do? Well, I was a research scientist, but there's no more work. So now I drive Uber. They have no. So to learn responsibility, just living in the temple, you learn responsibility. You learn what should be done and what should not be done. This is the basics. Work for us, I mean, any number of activities are performed here on a regular basis that prepare one to be responsible, to have the attitude that's needed in order to either be a productive grahasta or a potent brahmachari, either one. He can do anything. Just they have a... College is overrated, and, to the extent where, I know in my, trades, I mean, when I hire people as a contractor, they're making more than so-called college graduates, and they'll continue to make more than so-called graduates. And their work will be more continuous. But yes, it's a little harder labor in one sense. They're using a different set of skills. But it doesn't mean, but they're making 6 figures. I don't know a plumber who makes less than 6 figures, or electrician, or any of these trades. Nurses, they don't have to go to school for 4 years and then work for 2. No, they can. You can become a student nurse. When my kids graduated, they immediately walked into high-paying jobs after 18 months of schooling. Of course, they were in the military before that, but it doesn't matter. It's still the same. So if you just want to make money, go become an air condition specialist or an electrician. You make lots of money. You won't make a lot of money being a farmer right now, unfortunately, but you'll never be hungry. So some people might think that that's stable. If you have 5 acres, a cow, and land, isn't that wealth? That's enormous wealth. You never have to worry about anything. As long as you got your cow dung fire, you grow a little bit of wheat. My friend on the farm, Nuram Reti, when I gave him 5 acres because he was someone who I know could do something with it, and he grew all types of grains, because grains are not difficult to grow. They're not so easy. The bugs don't really bother them as much. There are other things that bother them. And he produced enough wheat. I was still using his wheat because wheat berries, they don't become spoiled. You put them in a bucket. You can store them unopened for so many years. But even opened, I was using those wheat berries for 20 years. I had many buckets. I can't remember. It must have been a couple 100 pounds. When you need them, to use them, you grind them. Fresh flour from berries that are 20 years old. No problem. So, this is wealth. If everything stopped tomorrow and all the food disappeared off the shelf, everybody would die. It doesn't matter if you had a college degree or not. You're going to be dead. Right? You're going to go through everything. Can you imagine how, and what happens after that? What's the next step after the grocery store shelves are empty? Then what happens? Then you've got the cannibalism. People think that they say, no, of course this happens. Happens more often than people want to think about. So this is the future. What does it say in the Bhagavatam? It said people will be having children just to eat them. And this happened in Russia during the famines, during the Holodomor. You could look it up in history. This is only less than 100 years ago. Less than 100 years ago. They had to put big signs all over Russia that said, don't eat your children. You know, so people forget. It's very easy to forget. History is not kind to those who forget. It just comes back. You know, so we're not trying to be sensationalist like that. This is actual human history. You know, and you go up and wars, famine, pestilence. These three things always come. Prabhupada, I remember reading this and thinking, Prabhupada knew everything. He knew everything. And they said these things always occur together. Wars, famine, and pestilence. So, we can't be surprised. We shouldn't be surprised. We should be prepared. We should be prepared mentally and spiritually, not to be disturbed by such things, but to be able to utilize it for Krishna service. More preaching. More preaching. You can walk up to any person and says, you know, would you rather have peace or war? Everyone's going to say peace. You say, well, the only way to have peace is Bhoktaram Jagnatapasam Sarvalokam Ahishram Suridam Sarvabhutanam Yad Gyatva Mam Shantam Richati. That's the peace formula in the Bhagavad Gita. Did you ever read that one, Kama? We used to have these little pamphlets we used to pass out in the street back in the 70s. And that was called, and the title, we used to print just little pamphlets, handouts, like tracts. And it was called The Peace Formula. The Peace Formula. You can look it up in Vedabase, it's still there. The Peace Formula. The other little pamphlet we used to print was what? Stay high forever. Because what was going on? There was the Vietnam War, and there was the hippie movement. So nobody wanted war, and everybody wanted drugs. Right? To forget the war. So, anyway, material nature is our friend, if we know how to put it in the proper perspective. Because it will keep us honest. You know, that, oh, I don't want to do that. Yeah. So, any other questions? Don't worry, everything, Krishna has everything arranged for every single person. It's amazing. But we have to surrender. That's the key. And once we get to that point, automatically we'll see how Krishna is facilitating everything. In every respect. Under all circumstances. Śrimad Bhāgavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Shri Shri Radha Damodar ki, Shri Shri Radha Govinda Dev ki.